Hey everybody, Mike and Avenant, Healthy Numbers here. I'm actually outside my office at the house. I call it the tree house because, as you can tell, we're up in the trees here. But anyway, it's such a nice evening down here. I thought, well, why not do this outside tonight? So tonight is part 2. Do you need to take dietary supplements? And of course, I think in the last video, part 1, we talked about that. If no, you don't have to take dietary supplements if you're living in the Garden of Eden and eating from the fruit of the trees and the herbs of the field and in that perfect, pristine environment. Then probably you can get away with not taking nutritional supplements. But in the world in which we live in today, for most of us, I definitely encourage that we take a good pharmaceutical grade nutritional supplement that can be validated, that actually gets absorbed into the tissue. So, because that's nutrition when it gets to the cell, not just because you ate it. But anyway, so tonight we want to cover a couple of things. Number one, as many of you know, May is kind of a challenging month for me. 9 years ago, yesterday in fact, my parents left this world, and as a result of the ravages of cancer. So, you know, part of my passion for what I do and have done most of my life, I just love, you know, seeing what fitness and nutrition and health can, good health can do for folks and how they live. And so that's a motivation. Today was interesting because today I spent part of the day in a physician's office, radiology, oncology, with my father-in-law that had some skin cancer, and they're doing some treatment with radiation. And it was real interesting being in that environment again 9 years after all those events, and then really bringing back a lot of those challenging memories. But you know, one of the things that, and I'll blog about some of this, you know, on blog.healthynumbers.net. And thanks for all of you that joined, those of you that watched today and those that are watching the future. I know this is a unusual time. A lot of folks doing things on a Wednesday night. But anyway, you know, being back in that office, I noticed that there's, you know, magazines dedicated to cancer, much like magazines dedicated to diabetes. And that tells you a lot about the industry of sickness and the industry, especially cancer. And one of the things that, you know, as I talk about these things about nutritional supplementation, I know that there are a lot of folks that in my profession, the health and fitness industry, that don't encourage nutritional supplements. And there's a lot of course, physicians and doctors that don't encourage it. And I just think that's just missing the boat. I know that there's so many studies out there that show that we're so nutritionally deficient. You know, it's just documented. We know it's there, and we know that we're in this fast food society where we oftentimes get things that are quick and easy versus those things that are healthy and nutritious. So tonight in part 2, I wanted to talk about why vitamin, mineral, antioxidant supplementation is necessary, and just a couple of issues because I want to be done fairly quick here. Number one, crop nutrition losses. Decades of the methods by which we now farm. Of course, most of you know that, you know, back at the turn of the 19th century, 20th century, we were primarily agrarian. High percentage of the people that worked on farms and raised everything, and that's long gone. Most of the farmers now, of course, are corporate farming, large corporate entities that supply the bulk of the food for most of our nation. And we know that they did some studies from 1940 to 1991, and this, you know, I don't know that it's been updated, but at that point, by 1991, they were showing that up to 76% of some key vitamins and minerals, or mainly minerals, were actually missing from our soil, from our crops, from the fields in which the crops were raised. 76% loss from where they were in 1940 to 1991. And that has, of course, it hasn't deteriorate. I mean, it hasn't improved. I mean, the farming methods haven't improved. I mean, changed. And so as a result of that, there's a significant amount of crop nutrient loss. So the foods, even though they may look good, are nutritionally very much skinny. Next is nutrient variance. So if I go out and I get a fresh tomato from my garden, and I go and I compare the nutrition of that fresh, organically grown tomato with the tomato that I would purchase at a regular grocery store, do you think there's going to be a difference in the nutrient content of the tomato I grew in my backyard in an organic environment versus that that's mass-produced? And what happens, folks, when they don't pull a tomato off the vine when it's ripe to then be shipped. They pull the tomato while it's still green. So it's nutritionally not complete at that point. They gas it to start the color process by which by the time it gets to the store, it looks like a ripe tomato. And we oftentimes will cut into that tomato and we'll find out it's not so ripe and it has no flavor. So there's a difference in the nutrient variance between one fruit or vegetable compared to another. So again, how do you as an individual control that? Unless you're doing it and you're like me, where I'm growing my vegetables in the backyard, and I'm going to have fruit trees and things as well that, how are you controlling that? You can't control that. So you're left to whatever they provide you from the grocery store, of course, is what it is, and it's nutritionally void of a lot of things. It looks great, but it's empty on the inside. Next, food selection. Now, I know all of us, I know the majority of my family that I was raised with, that I grew up with, still eat the same foods that they grew up eating. Monday night's this, Tuesday night, Friday night's that. Every night it's almost identical to what they grew up eating. So the food selection tends to get very limited. And I know I eat pretty much the same most every single day. So the nutritional selection, the food selections that we have get very narrow. And as a result of that, we don't eat a wide range of foods, of fruits and vegetables from different sources. And as a result of that, we're nutritionally deficient in so many areas. And one of the things, too, that's changed with the way the foods that we eat, there used to be a point in our history as a country where we didn't have this one type of corn. Primarily in this country, if you go to the grocery store, you get a bell pepper. It's one type of bell pepper. We've really limited the variety of corn, of peppers, of tomatoes. Basically, you go to the grocery store, you get basically the same one everywhere you go. So the selection has become very narrow. We don't get the same variety of crops that we used to have available to us. You didn't eat just one kind of corn. You may have 2 or 3 kinds of corn growing in your garden. You may have, like me, I've got 5 or 6 different pepper and tomato varieties growing in my garden, so that I get a good selection, a good cross selection of those fruits and vegetables. So oftentimes, when it comes to food selection, it's very narrow, and that narrowness creates deficiencies. All right, and then the last one is food omission. Now, I know, especially nowadays, when I was growing up, we hardly had anybody with an allergy to anything. I mean, you may have 1 or 2 people in a class in high school that had some type of significant allergy, but now, of course, we know allergies are everywhere, and so many people have allergies not to one thing, but multiple things. And as a result of, and that's just used the analogy, and that's just used one example of allergies. How many foods are cut out of a person's diet because of some allergy? I mean, again, these things create deficiencies. How many people go on crash diets? I've had friends that for whatever reason decided that this high meat stuff that's out there was the way to go, and with some severe nutritional deficiencies that actually result in hospital stays. So again, crash diets, and then of course, like myself, I'm much more toward a vegetarian, whole food, plant-based diet. And you know, when you move to that area, you have to be very careful because you can create some deficiencies if you try to limit the variety of foods you eat, and you're already on like a vegetarian diet. Then you have to be very cautious, very aware that there's a squirrel sitting on the roof right here. Oh, there he goes. When you're in the trees, you're going to be with the squirrels. And the nuts. Hello. But anyway, so these are just some of the areas, and I'm going to cover some more. But let's go. Crop nutrient losses as a result of our current mass production of food that we have in our country. Nutrient variance, you're going to get, you know, from one field to the next, from one crop to the next, you're going to get a difference in nutrient variance. Food selection, and we by choice and by habit and by how we were raised, we grow up creating restricted food selections, and of course the variety of foods that we no longer have available because they're not grown anymore, they're not even used in our marketplace. And then of course food omission as a result of allergies, crash dieting, and very narrow diets that can lead to nutritional imbalances and deficiencies. So again, do you need to take dietary supplements? Yes, you do. And so we're going to continue. I got another part 3 coming up, and we'll finish out with some of the reasons why you need to take a good quality pharmaceutical grade nutritional supplement that actually gets absorbed into the body, into the cells. That's nutrition. Okay, folks, signing off. Appreciate you watching. Share it with your friends. I appreciate it. Again, Mike@healthynumbers.net is my email address. My website, healthynumbers.net. You can also join me on Facebook. Again, Healthy Numbers. So hope to see you again soon. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the scenery up here in the treehouse. Have a great one, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.